looking at how to use CSS positions. Now, there are 5 position values in CSS, namely static, relative, absolute, fixed, and sticky. But the first one, which is the position static, is the default value. It's sticky and fixed, right? Now, when you use the other values, those other 4 that I mentioned, when you use the value position, then you can use the top, bottom, left, right, and Z index to position the elements exactly where you want them to be. For example, if you assign position relative, you can use the properties to offset the element to itself. So you can use the properties. Let me show us with an example. So we have div. Let's just give this div element. Let's just give it this name. Then we go to CSS. Let's just link that. Just bear with me here. Okay. Then we go to CSS. I'm not going to do anything dramatic here. So I'll just use div. Take its elements. No, singular. So element. So I'll just do padding. Maybe 25 pixels. So let's just give it a background color. So we can do dark blue. So we can do height of maybe 400 pixels, width of another 400 pixels. We don't have text. So if I do position relative, so let's reduce these guys. They are massive. Okay, so we have this 200 pixels. So if you want to offset them to the, let's say, now you, like we said, if you use the position relative, you can use any of the properties to offset it. Now, let me give us an example. Let's say I want to do left of 20 pixels, and I save. So it offsets, so it goes to the left, or it moves from the left to the right by 25 pixels. So if I do 100 pixels, so it goes there. If we do top of about 100 pixels, so it gets offset. So you see, it gives the gap from the top 100 pixels, then from the left 100 pixels. So you can do, so if you do bottom, now let's remove the top and make bottom. It goes up. It goes up by another 100%. 100 pixels. So that's what we mean by you can change the value. You can offset your elements by the properties you are using, meaning you can change the position relative to its normal position. Now, it's only affecting, let me go back to top. So this movement, this element, the box that we have created, the dark blue box we have created, it's only being affected relative to its normal position. So it moves from, if I go back to 50, it moves by 50 pixels. If you do this, it moves by, it doesn't affect any other element. It only affects relative to its position. Now, what it means is that it offsets the element from its original position. So it moves from 0 to 10 pixels. So this is the original position. So when you add your 10 pixels, it just moves, change its position. Now, you understand that now it changes its position, just moves from left to right by 10 pixels. So the same thing if we do now, the next one we want to look at, the next position we want to look at will be fixed. So now is fixed. Now, when you do fixed, we can also do the same. So position fixed, we fix the element to the window. Now, this is not being moved, is not moving from its original position, as the case may be. It's now the element fixed, we fix the element to the window. A fixed element just sits on a different layer above every other element. So it sits above every other element. If I had top by 0, you see it sits above every other element. If I do 10 pixels, it just sits above it's like something being on its own layer above every other element. In fixed positioning, the element is no longer relative to the element itself, but to the entire window. If I do right 10 pixels, now it's moving, it's walking from the window, unlike relative that moves from its original position relative to its own position. So it moves from this to this, but this one is walking, but fixed is walking with the window. So your 10 starts from window, your left starts from the window, top window, bottom window, because it is no longer relative to the element itself, but to the entire window. It gets stuck to the window, the edge of the windows, right? You can also use percentage value. Let's use percentage value in this one. Let's do 15% comes down. And you do an left instead of right. Let me do left. The same 50%. So you have 50% left, 50%. So this, the position, to position the fixed element to the center of the window, we then need to adjust the transform value using translate. So what we'll just do is that we'll just do transform, translate, because we use 50-50. So we can just do minus 50%. So we're offsetting by the negative value of what we use for. So now is now in the middle. So minus 50, minus 50. So we need to push the element back 50% relative to itself. Now that's why we're using the transform. So this is one way you can center an element using position fixed. So you do your translate minus 50, minus 50. I hope you understand. You are understanding the position, the CSS positioning. Okay, let's move to the other one. The next one is sticky. So let me remove all this that we have done. And let's leave this. So sticky. Now how does sticky works? The difference here with position fix is that it will follow us around, but until it reaches the sticky point set for it. So let's say our sticky point is top 10 pixels until it gets where it will stick to the top. It will just keep going. It behaves almost like relative and fixed. Is the combination of relative positioning and fixed positioning. Relative in the sense that it stays on its layer and it goes up, but by the time it gets to where you set the sticky position, it now stays fixed to that position. So if you look at it, it stays fixed to the position. Get? So it just stays fixed to that position. It doesn't move. It stays there. That's how the sticky works. Now let's move up to the last one, which is position absolute. Position absolute will always be positioned relative to its nearest ancestor that has a specified position. So let me go back and cancel. Where's that div that I have earlier? Okay, now let's call this element parent. Now inside the parent, we'll now have a child element. So now let's work with this. Let's change this to parents. So I'll call this dark gray, right? So we're not doing, let's leave all these positions for now. Now we'll now do child. So I'll just do background color red or dark blue. Let me use dark blue. maybe padding of 1 rem. Okay, so let's just see how it works. So it's inside this guy. Get now the moment we put something inside the element, inside the child element. So I'll just do an h2. I'll call this child element. So we have this. Now let's go back and color. Okay. See, now what we can now do here is that the parent has everything, but now when we get to the child, we can now add position absolute, and so child elements absolute. But if we now add something and say, okay, top 0. Now the reason, if you notice what just happened, because the parent does not have a specified position, or what absolute means. It says will always be positioned relative to his nearest ancestor. And for this situation, because the parent where it is under or in does not have the position relative, the nearest ancestors became the body. But the moment I had this now and do relative, it went back and became it now moved up to the nearest ancestor, which happens to be the parent. So if I do top or change it to bottom, it comes to the bottom. If I do left, stays to the left. If I do right, it goes to the right. That's how the position. So position works. So the moment the parents stop being relative, doesn't have the, so it works with now the body. The nearest ancestor is now the body. That's how CSS positioning work, especially the absolute. So since the child element is using the absolute positioning, then the parent element should then use the position relative value. If not, if the parent does not use the relative value, the nearest parent, especially the body, get inherited, becomes relative to the nearest ancestor, which happens to be the body. So now with the child element, you can also position relative to its parent. You can use the top, right, bottom, and left proper. Note, like I said earlier, note, if the parent element does not have the relative position, then the child element will now be positioned relative to the nearest ancestor. Let's do an example. So I will create, what's that now? Let me call it parent element, then child elements. Okay. So the parent element, I'll just come copy this. Okay. So we have this. So I will change the height to the height to maybe 50 pixels. Okay, 50 pixels is large. 30. Nope. 10. Oh, because of the padding. I change. Let me remove the padding for now. I just want to see. Okay, height to 30. Okay. Now the child element. Copy the child element. So let's do this. Okay. So the height of this will now be 100% now, is so that it fills up. 100%, height 100%, aspect, we'll add like an aspect ratio. Aspect ratio 1:1. Okay. Fill. So let's add, in case there's a fill, white. There's no fill white. So we have border. Let's add border none. Okay. Then border radius. Border radius 50%. Okay. Position absolute. Okay. So I've removed or should I remove the border radius? So it just fills up. Yeah. Something like this. So let's assume this is a form where you can fill. So this is where your search is. Your search is. So we can now do z index of 10 pixels. So let it be above. So assuming this is like a form, so this is how it works. Yeah, I hope you understand it, but please, if you don't understand, you can comment on the video asking me to explain it better. Then I'll be able to go back and recommend to explain, or if I need to also do a video, I will. Okay, thank you. If you find value in this video, please consider subscribing. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.